Okay, whoops. Okay, you're all set.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. All right, we'll get started at this time. And good evening, everyone. Welcome to the June 9th meeting of the Niskiona Task Force on Racial Equity and Justice. At this time, I welcome everyone, and let's call the meeting to order. I'll take a brief roll call of all members. So let's proceed. Angela Antikowski. I'll note absent at this time. Arinka Abad. No response. Absent at this time. Aya Osman. No response. Dale Black Pennington. I'm present. David Amadeo.
Present and accounted for.
Thank you. Elizabeth Paul.
Present.
Kataki Bodhanker.
Present.
Dr. Hayward Horton.
Present.
Dr. Jamie Puccioni.
Present.
Jillian Margolis.
Present.
John Lemeling.
Present.
Priti Irani.
Present.
Sandra Griffin.
Present.
Larry Ritter. Noted absent. I believe we have a quorum. We've just made 10 members. Is that correct, Mr. Secretary, John?
Yes, we have a quorum. Thank you.
Thank you. So then I will proceed with all items on the agenda, including those that we wish to vote on tonight. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the May 12th, 2021 meeting minutes, which have been forwarded to all members and were attached to our notice tonight. Any comments? Does anyone wish to make any statements about the agenda or the minutes? I'm sorry. Okay, hearing no response, then I'll move towards a vote. Is there anyone who wishes to vote against the approval of those minutes? All in favor, please just say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Okay, and it's unanimously passed by the quorum present at this time. And I'll move on to the next agenda item, the intern update given by Ari and Jamie. So Dr. Puccioni, would you be able to move forward with the intern update at this time?
Yes, sure. We received 4 applications, and we recommended that we have that we accept 3 of those applications. The primary reason one of the applications was not selected is because it was incomplete. It was missing several components. We will be sending, we met with the leadership committee to share, our findings and our recommendations, and we were all in agreement. So the letters will be going out to the interns this week. We anticipate that the interns will begin at the end of June and continue through the month of August. Ari will be composing a description of the interns who will be joining us. And then we will also be reaching out to the different work group chairs to determine their needs and find an appropriate alignment of the interns, their skills, their attributes, their interests, and how they align with the different work groups in order to place the interns with corresponding work groups. We anticipate doing that over the next 2 weeks. And are there any questions?
Not at this time. Thank you, Jamie.
Yes, Liz?
Hi, nice, very nice. How diverse was the application pool?
It was not, it was very diverse in terms of racial and ethnic background. It was not diverse in terms of gender distribution. I don't want to go into that many details publicly because we haven't sent out the notifications to the applicants. So I wouldn't, that wouldn't be appropriate, but we will definitely include that. I'll ask Ari to include that information in her report to the task force. Sandra?
You're on mute, Sandra.
I was going to ask the same question.
I will say that there was, again, excellent racial and ethnic diversity. There'll be a representation of different racial and ethnic backgrounds. No gender diversity.
Okay, thank you very much, Jamie. We'll move on to the next agenda item. I've requested an update from the town attorney regarding the status of applications and replacements for positions that 1-year terms, which will expire at the end of July on the task force. And Paul, I did receive your email where you informed us that the town is requesting resumes from town residents for membership on the task force to be submitted by July 1st, and that the town board intends to take action at the board meeting on July 27th, appointing residents to the task force. I did forward that resume to the leadership today. We got it, I think I got it at some point yesterday. And I haven't forwarded it to the full task force until now, where I'm reading the content of your email. Is there anything that you wish to add at this time, Paul?
Not with respect to that task force, but I do at some point in time tonight's meeting, I'd like to report on the replacement membership process.
Okay. Well,
for the racial equity task force.
Okay. So for the police reform task force, the information that you submitted to us, is that regarding the police reform task force, or is that regarding the general task force on racial equity and justice?
No, that information that you just read is about the police reform task force.
Okay. All right. So let's, according to how the agenda is set up, let me go back to the agenda. And I thought it was about our task force. So let me just pull up the agenda again. At this time, let's discuss the process for appointing replacement members to the task force, to this task force.
So I posted that on the town website. And I had input from everyone about what we were going to put on, and we did. and I asked for resumes to be submitted to my office by July 1st or the end of June. I don't remember which one it is, and I have not received any resumes as of this point. I don't have one, not one. So that's the update. We don't have any people that have submitted resumes requesting membership on the Racial Equity and Justice Task Force.
When did that hit the town webpage, Paul?
At least 2 weeks ago, I'm pretty sure. I would say maybe 3 weeks ago.
Can it be put in the weekly town newspaper, the one that the Gazette publishes, the not the Uranus, whatever it's called, comes on Thursday or Friday?
The NISC unit, I don't know. I only put it on the town website.
This is Preeti. David, that's a good idea to put it in
Yeah.
your NISCA, because we all read it.
I'll do that.
Yeah.
Okay. I see that John's, I'm sorry, Pretty. I see that John's hand is raised. John?
Yeah, I had the same kind of thought. I don't know how many people go to the website, Paul, and I know a lot of people, even in the task force, they were not on the listserv. So, considering the importance of this group, I would encourage the town to advertise, to repost, to reach out, to really try to be sure that they have a representative sample of people who are interested, maybe even reaching out to the people that attempted to get on the task force last year. I mean, I don't know what the answer is, but I'd hate to have, seats unfilled for, or at least I would want to try to do everything we can to fill them. So.
I will certainly explore other avenues. I'll contact the Gazette specifically about the News Unit Weekly that is included with the paper. That's one that I'm sure I can do. But I'm open to other ideas. I have the resumes, I believe. I know I do, someplace for the initial proposals or for the initial membership. So that's certainly something I can maybe reach out to those people to see if they have any continued interest in being a member now.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Paul. I see, Sandra, you have your hand raised.
Yes, the way I found out about it was that there was an actual television news thing done about how the town was creating the task force. So is there the possibility of some form of video media being involved in and making an announcement?
I had not planned on doing any television station releases.
Can that be done, or is that unorthodox in this instance, Paul?
Well, I haven't seen that done, but I certainly know that town board members have at times issued a press release to the papers, and then the papers make the decision whether or not that's something that they want to run as a story. And we have a new reporter at the Gazette, so I'll certainly contact her to see if this is something that she would be interested in.
Okay, thank you.
Paul, and I had a question. I'm looking at the town website. Where is it posted? Is it posted under announcements? I mean, I don't seem to find it.
I don't know. I saw it the first time when it went up, but I don't. I haven't looked. I personally don't look at the website much.
Okay.
Can
But
I
will.
jump in for you, Paul? It's posted on news and announcements. Every time the news and announcements gets updated, it pushes it lower and lower. So it's possible to put it out again to get it back at the top on the front page. But now you have to click, all news, and you have to click at the bottom of the main page in order to see it.
Yeah, I'm doing that. I don't find it. That's why I'm asking.
It's down. It says there's no picture for it. It says Town of Niskayuna Town Board seeking town residents
Oh,
for
membership.
on Town of Niskayuna
Okay.
Task Force.
May 19th.
Yes, exactly. May 19th. That's exactly it.
All right. So I think, yeah. So maybe, Paul, after this meeting, I can make some suggestions because I would not even read that heading. It's so long that it needs to be a little more concise. Either it gets lost. I think people just haven't read it. I missed it, and I was looking for it.
You want the announcements to be more concise?
The title, at least, it's like 2 lines. Look at all the other titles. It's in 1 line. This one, when I see all caps, 2 lines, I just skip over it. It's just, it's just something I do. I think, well, the others have a little photograph. This one doesn't have anything. So I think it's very easy for people not to read. So maybe Kay, you can work with, and I can kind of give you some suggestions, and you can work with the town. Thanks.
Sure thing. And also, I just, while we're at the topic, I just wanted to confirm, I'm not a member of Listserv, so I cannot confirm that, but was an email sent out as well? Because that's how my family found out from last year. John, do you know if there was an email as well?
Yeah, I think I saw an email, but I also confirmed that not everybody, even on this task force, is on that listserv. So I don't know how comprehensive it is, but I did see something go out, and I think I forwarded it to everybody. But I just don't know. I don't know how many people look at the website, and I don't know how many people are on the listserv. But if we haven't got any applications, I would say it's time to, double down, I guess.
Yeah. I found out.
It sounds like you're going to do that, Paul, so we appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. I see Hayward has raised his hand.
Yes. This might seem a little old school, but it seems to me that television and radio still have to do PSAs. And I think that could be something that could be done as well. I mean, that was it.
Okay, thank you.
Just
And Liz, you wanted to make a statement?
Yeah. I found out through the Niskayuna email too, and plus the newspaper, how to apply. So I got in like 1 day before the application.
Yes, Kay?
Just another idea, since we're all brainstorming here. Is this something that can be also announced at the regular town board meeting?
Paul? Have they announced this at the town board meeting?
Yes, it can be.
Okay. Because, I mean, if it's announced on the 22nd, I believe we still have decent enough time before July 1st to submit.
I think it's the 27th. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Tom,
27th.
the regular town board?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just on the town website and it says June 22nd, but
Oh, okay.
So it's the last
July meeting
Tuesday.
is the 27th.
So we met last night. So it's 2 weeks from last night. So that would be
22nd.
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 I'm not. Yeah, I'm trying. I'd have to look at. It's either the. I want to think it's the 29th, but I would have to look at the calendar to verify it. For some reason, the 29th is in my head. Or so I don't have the ability to look at the calendar because I'm having communication problems, which is why I'm on the phone. So if someone could look at the calendar and see when the next town board meeting is.
I'm on the town calendar. So the meeting you were talking about was yesterday, June 8th. And so the next one is June 22nd.
Good. So so certainly we can do that at the town board meeting.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. And Kay, would you be able to work with Paul and try to incorporate some of these ideas, the ideas today, including the PSA, the relanguaging or the language for the website, for the posting on the town board, on the town website, and the other ideas that were discussed tonight?
Sure. And I also see in the comment feature, Angela has said Facebook. If the Town of Niskuna Facebook page, I know we don't have a Facebook page, but if the Town of Niskuna Facebook page can also be used as a another medium for the same news item that's on the website.
Okay, great.
So Paul, I will connect with you this week.
Okay.
And we'll have our IT, we'll have Seth, who's our IT person, repost it so it'll get back to the top of the news.
Perfect. Thank you, Paul.
You know, one last approach hasn't been mentioned, and I think it's probably arguably the best approach. That's word of mouth. That's how I found out about this. And so I think that it's appropriate for each of us to look into our own networks. And if we know someone, we can perhaps encourage that person to apply.
Good suggestion. Excellent. Any other comments? Okay. At this time, I'll just acknowledge Arinka and Dr. Antikowski joined us. So we certainly are well over a quorum now, and welcome. I'll move on to the next agenda item at this time, which is a discussion of the Task Force Leadership Committee nominations and elections. As you know, our one-year member terms cease as of July 31st of this year. So that's the end of next month. And let me see. Also, the terms of our leadership group cease as of July 31st of this year also. So we will have to take nominations for new leadership committee members before or about the August meeting. I would think it would be best actually to do it in July. The only issue is we're looking at appointment of at least 4 new members. We discussed this at the leadership meeting, and just to be concise, we may need to wait until the new members have been appointed by the board, the town board, before actually moving forward with nominations and our electoral process for our leadership group. David.
Thanks, Dale. I think that's the wisest thing to do, but I would also recommend moving forward, why not just amend the bylaws in terms of election of officer positions to state that those will be put off until perhaps September, since new members will be appointed in July to begin August 1. Why not give ourselves a couple of months of working together with new task force members before we decide on leadership positions or vote on them anyway? I think it would be a quick change to the bylaws.
Yeah, actually, the bylaws are silent. They don't give us a date for our
That's
elections.
true.
It just says upon expiration of terms. So we're pretty flexible. We
That's good.
can
Okay.
make that statement and go with it. It's just a matter of setting that up, taking an informal vote at a meeting, and then proceeding in that manner.
Thanks for pointing that out. I'm sorry.
And I think I've advised everyone that I'm not continuing at the end of my term. We did inquire of Dr. Puccioni as to whether or not she wished to step into the chair position as vice chair, and she's indicated that she doesn't wish to do so. So we need to at least have a chair and a vice chair nominated before we proceed.
Right.
After the end, at the end of the summer. Our communications person, Kay, is also subject to a one-year term, and we would have to wait until the board indicates that she's reappointed and find out whether or not she wishes to run as an officer also. And John, who is the secretary, he may also wish to rerun or to step. I think John, you've indicated that you'd like to take a hiatus, but I'm not sure at this point. I won't speak for you. So we would need to take nominations and proceed. Additionally, there was a recommendation made and discussed at the leadership group that I'd like to put on the floor for a hiatus that we do not hold a general meeting in July or August or both. Take a hiatus and wait for the board to appoint new members and then move forward with our leadership process. And during the hiatus, our groups would still be active. The work groups would still be moving forward and would have their reports to be made at the next meeting. So I'd like to open the floor for discussion of taking a hiatus and possibly voting on taking a hiatus for July and August, or July or August. Any impressions, Sandra?
I'm just trying to make sure I understand. You're talking about the total task force, not the work groups, correct?
For where we would be holding off on holding full work group, full task force meetings for a month or two until we have a fully appointed task force. But with the town board appointing new members and having those new members participate in the electoral process for our leadership group.
Okay, but the work groups, if they chose to meet over the summer, July, August, the work groups are not included in your proposal currently.
Right, they would continue just so we don't lose momentum.
Okay.
Okay.
I would like to support the idea of taking a hiatus for the month of July, with the understanding that if new members are appointed in the month of July to begin in August, that they can attend the first general meeting in the month of August. This will be sort of their orientation before we get a chance to, nominate or vote in September.
Is that a motion? If it is, I'll second it.
Sure, I'll make it a motion. Motion to cancel the July general meeting.
I thought you said August. Did you say August?
No, I said July, with the understanding that once new members are on board as of 1st August, that the August general meeting would be their first meeting.
Okay.
That we don't cancel the August meeting.
Okay. David?
If I may, thank you. I think that makes sense, Kay, and everyone. I'm a tiny bit concerned that we may not have a quorum at any point during the summer because of people taking vacations this year that they have been dying to take since the pandemic hit. But that we cross those bridges when we get there. You know, that if we can't meet in August because we don't have a quorum, we don't meet. That's okay. But let's do what Kay says and plan it so that we can welcome the new membership then as appointed in July. But I think I would support taking July off anyway for the general meeting.
I will support whatever whatever everybody wishes to do. I think that's a great idea. I only recommend and suggest that we have a interim chair so that someone can lead the discussions for the August meeting, and just an agenda be developed by the rest of the leadership team as we've been doing, so that, you know, the meeting can proceed in order. That's any comments, questions, statements, is, you know.
I agree with that idea. It does make some sense, so we can have some continuity, and most importantly, so that we can essentially just operate until we get the new officers in place.
I support Doc's nomination for interim leader. Come on.
Oh, I didn't hear that one.
I'm pretty sure that's what you just said, Doc. I'm pretty sure.
That's not what I said. Oh, but for one meeting, I think I can handle it.
And just checking, do we still have Kate motion for the meeting? that we have to vote on that yet?
I'll second
Okay,
that motion.
in order then, I'll take it in order then. We'll move at this point on Kay's motion, which was seconded by Doc. And is there anyone who opposes a hiatus in the month of July, reconvening in August with an interim chair? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And
Aye.
Okay, I don't see any nays. So that motion is passed. We will resume or you guys will resume your next meeting in August. And we are taking a hiatus in the month of June.
July.
I'm sorry, July. So then we'll move on. I thought that David, you were joking, but Doc, have you nominated yourself as interim chair?
Oh no, I haven't nominated myself. If I am nominated, then I would accept it.
I nominate Doc. This is Kay. Another motion to nominate Doc as interim leadership. Interim chair.
I would second that.
Okay, the motion has been seconded 5 times. So
all those in favor?
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Well, thank you. I would like to say that I will not be a candidate for the full for the permanent position, and primarily because I already hold, in my view, quite a few other leadership positions running some other organizations, and I can't juggle with so many of these things long term. But I'll gladly do the interim.
Very gracious. Thank you.
And Doc, you have been so appointed. So we will move on. Before I move on to the next item on the agenda, I'm going to go back to the intern update. Ari, you joined us a little late, and Jamie gave us a update. Is there anything that you wish to add? We understand that you received 4 applications, and there's a recommendation for approval of 3 of them. And the only reason the 4th application was not approved was because the candidate failed to complete the full application. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Is there anything else that you wish to tell us at this time?
No, I have full confidence that Jamie already updated the whole task force.
Great, thank you. We will move on then to the The next item on the agenda is actually Police Reform Implementation Task Force Appointment Update. And I believe that Paul has already advised us of that. So I will move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the Task Force Self-Assessment Tool Update. Liz, Priti, and Ari, I will turn the table over to you at this time.
Thank you. This is Preeti and Liz, and I've been working with Liz and Ari. And we do have a tool which we sent to the leadership committee yesterday, only because we finished working on it yesterday. So if you would like, it's basically has some, I can present it so you can kind of see what it's like. Would that work? Yeah, so let me see if I can figure out how to present it. So it's a present screen. So do you see the screen? So let me see. View.
There it is.
Yeah, so I'll make it a bit bigger. So the suggestion was, of course, to make it online. Now, this is not, I got this, so if I'll go to the end of it first. So there were 4 resources that we got this from. Most of the questions, the short questions, are from Western States Center Racial Justice Equity Tool. And we added, because that tool was meant for nonprofits and we are part of a public group, I added 1 question on transparency taken from Federal Open Government Plan Self-Evaluation. And then the kind of the short answer questions are from Demos, Racial Equity Transformation, what they use with the staff. And there is one I took from Dismantling Racism's Phases of Racial Equity Work. So anyway, so how would you like to do this? Would you like us to read out the questions, send it to you, and get your feedback? How would you like to do it? There are basically 15 questions, which are green, yellow, red. Green if you think we're on track. Yellow if you've started. Red, we've not yet started. Gray, you don't know. And then there is this phases. Where are we at, you think, as a group? And then there are these short answer questions, which I took from demos. So how would you like to do this? Would you like time to read it? And then we can talk about it at the next meeting, which is in August, because it would be good for the new group coming in to look at this too. But I would suggest to actually I was thinking, when should one do this? At the beginning of a group formation, middle, or end? And I think it would be helpful if the group was at least operational between 4 to 6 months, because then you know what's happening to be able to answer the question. So one thought I had is we have, this could be used with the task force or with work groups. So we have the data and best practices work group, which has been meeting since April. And I would give them 6 months to get to know each other. And I could possibly pilot this in September. So that'll give us a chance at August to look at it and talk about it. And I could ask the group if they're open to answering these questions in September. And again, everybody would complete it, but we would discuss the summary comments, not the individual ones. So Ari and Liz, any other thoughts? Any other? Based on Ari, you had a question. We talked a little bit about whether the name should be optional or whether we should require the name. So that was some of the discussion we had. But again, I know the town has an online tool for forms, and we would like to use that to do this, because the advantages of using online tool is you get complete responses, right? Otherwise, if you give paper, people complete part and don't complete part. So I am going to stop talking and see what you have to say.
Okay. I would suggest that this tool be used at the work group level before we use it as a whole task force tool. it may be a little premature at this point, since we even have some work groups that are not going to be active until I think August. The town administration and a couple other task force work groups will not be active until August or September at this point. And it may be better to just have the work groups work with this self-assessment tool at first and then discuss it as a full group. That's what I was thinking. I see, Angela, you have your hand raised.
Hi, thank you, Dale. Thank you all for working on this tool. One of the things I'm thinking about, for example, I'm thinking about number 3 for that question, for these questions. I think it may be an interesting or important opportunity to ask, or then to give an opportunity for people to ask how or why. So for example, a person, if this is used, let's say on the work group level, right? Number 3 says that task force workshop leadership has value-based relationships. Someone may endorse that they do, but of course that may not necessarily mean that they do. And so I think it would be helpful to know exactly sort of how, right? Or what does that mean to that person? Or number 7, where it says members are trained in interrupting racism. Well, people may say yes, but people's definition of what trained mean is different, right? And so then I think it may be maybe another question to ask, sort of, what does that mean, or how, right? I think that would, I think that these questions are very important, and I also think that people's perceptions of endorsement may vary, so that may be an important point of conversation in groups if the tool is used.
Angela, that's exactly what the point of the tool is. No matter what you put, there's a discussion. You know, whether you put green, yellow, red, or gray, it leads to discussion. And really, there's going to be, if we have like 14 members on the data and best practices work group, I expect to get a pretty colorful kind of thing back. But that's the discussion we'll have, and learn more about what each other's perspectives are. But you're right, Angela. That's where the value of this.
Okay, well, that's very helpful then. So it sounds like the tool is most importantly an opportunity to have more of a process conversation as opposed to, let's say, an actual metric of measure that let's say could be looked at, right, on a regular basis. This is really a great opportunity for people to really, it sounds like, explore exactly what they're doing and who the work serves, and to provide work groups an opportunity to then have conversations on that. Is that
That is
what I'm
correct.
hearing?
Yes,
Okay.
have deeper conversations. That's right.
Thank you.
So it might interrupt a little bit. I wanted to extend the thought of Angela. That's a really great opportunity to us to kind of delve more into the discussion. But also at the end of the evaluation tool that we have in front of us, there is also an open-ended questions in which it asks you, right, to expand on something if you have missed something. So we do have that opportunity as well, that if you point out to something that you have a priority that you would like to discuss, that will be something that we will be taking concerned about. I don't know, Pretty, if you can all the way down to see, please share with any comments you have. So the number 21 is open for everybody to point out a specific question that you would like to kind of discuss further as well. So that is kind of like in a broader term, right? And in regards to what Dale suggested about the leadership, like, I'm sorry, to have it in the evaluation tool just to the work groups, we have to consider that the leadership work group, as well as the whole task force, has some input and we have some experience already, right? Compared to the new group that it could come in. So that experience is the most important and valuable information that we have in order to make ourselves better. So I would also like for all of you to consider that part, that expertise, that experience that you have, throw into our task force is also very important, because we hear your voice and that will give us a little bit of more information and value to making our task force better. So I believe strongly that all voices should count on this evaluation tool. That's my 2 cents right now.
John, I see that you had your hand raised and you've taken it down. Do you have a comment?
No, I was just going to agree with a couple of things people said. I think it's a good idea to try this at the working group level first. And Pretty, I think you said you were planning to use this for the data and best practice group, and I think that's a perfect place to start. So that's all. I think those are
Right.
great ideas. And I
Probably
totally agree with it.
Yeah. We'll probably do it in September, John.
Okay. Angela, your hand is still raised. Do you wish to make a comment?
No.
Okay. Kay?
Thanks, Dale. Just a quick question of whether we'll have the opportunity to sort of review these questions and provide any feedback, or are these pretty much adapted from somewhere and we'll just probably run with these?
No, we can adapt it. So if you have comments, I know I only sent it to the leadership committee. I can send it out to everybody. So give me a feedback. Like I said, the first page is mostly taken from this, Western States, and open-ended from Demos, and the one of the questions, which is about phases from dismantling racism. So I've taken it from other places. Demos is actually very interesting because it was by Heather McGee. If you've read a book, I think it was The Sum of Us or whatever, but she had an amazing transformation in that organization. So anyway, yeah. So it's open for comment.
Great, thank you.
So Pretty, if you could dispense it to everyone, that
Right.
would be great. And just leave it open for feedback. Thanks. Okay. David, I think you raised your hand briefly.
Yes, thanks, Dale. I was actually thinking along the same lines as Kay, I think, in that I guess I'm just going short of proposing that the work groups take the instrument, the self-evaluation tool, perhaps during the month of August, or discuss it at a meeting with that sole focus of going through it and examining it more closely, and then maybe in September coming back with suggestions for that working group. In looking at some of it, I mean, this is the first time I've seen it this evening. There's some pretty heavy language in there, and a high level of accountability built into it, I think, and at least self accountability and self reporting, which I understand, as Pretty said, this is really more about generating discussion, which I think is great. I'm kind of concerned that there's so much meat in there that we could get lost and start going in circles. It's a pretty lofty instrument, and I'm impressed with it in reality, but it scares me at the same time to just, without a little further discussion, at least at the working group level.
Yeah, the reason I suggested September is my concern with July and August, that we will get people in and out.
Right.
We do have some very committed folks on the data and best practices work groups. I'll show it to them and see. Sometimes even if they're out, they may be able to give feedback on just the questions.
Right. Okay. Thank you. That's it for me. Thanks for hearing me out.
Okay. Thank you, Pretty, Ari, and Liz.
Yeah, thank you. Well, that was great work.
So we will move on then to the next item on the agenda, which is a discussion of the annual outcomes committee work group, a proposed work group from Angela, Jamie, and Kay. And then after the discussion, we can take a vote as to whether or not to constitute this work group. So I'll turn it over to you, Angela, Jamie, and Kay. You may proceed.
Hi, everyone. So I'm guessing, I'm hoping, those of you who were at the last meeting, you asked your questions then, and then we were able to send a copy of the document to everyone. I haven't received any questions. I don't know, Jamie or Kay, if you've gotten any questions, but I guess this is an opportunity, if there are any questions, that this would be an opportunity to have that conversation.
Angela, could you give us a little bit of a reminder what it is that your group was about and what you expect you're working on? I think it was the last meeting. I haven't read the document again, so that would be helpful.
Sure. So in page 3 of the document that was sent, the purpose is to provide a ready mechanism for assessing the annual outcomes of the work group in a strategic manner, and to provide a comprehensive data analytic repository for work groups, to review the town policies and procedures, and to and outcomes to identify potential racial inequity. So specifically looking at concrete quantitative items, and to maintain an annual database of the information. From page 4, to develop that framework, a clear strategic framework, and annually assess that, and to provide, if you will, a state of the union, that's for lack of a better term, on a yearly basis with respect to where the committee is in terms of our work, and to define a plan to address and resolve the disparities that are noted. If you then follow on slide 5 or maybe 6, to identify equity targets and measures as a part of an overall equity action plan. And I provided links to examples of other towns' equity action plans. And then we discussed developing an annual or triannual. Different towns will reevaluate their strategic plans on annual or triannual basis. That's a matter for leadership to figure out. But to develop a community diversity engagement survey of town residents, officials, other folks, to identify perceptions of inclusion and engagement.
Yeah, Angela, I thought that was very similar to what the data and best practices work group was. I looked at the 3 reports you shared with us. With Albany was one of them. One was with something with the deaf, and I forget the third one. And all 3 of them had a workplace component. Now, if you're going to do a workplace component, I would say that would be unique. But looking at outcomes and long-term indicators and disparities, that is also what the data and best practices work group is doing. We started working on systems just to give people an idea of how to look at it. But over the next 3 months, over the summer, that's exactly what we're going to be doing, looking at demographics, racial ethnic data. And those are the discussions we're going to start having on Tuesday, and then start presenting in July and August. So I think it's very similar if you're not doing workplace. And since all 3 of you are already on the data and best practices work group, I was just wondering why have a separate work group?
Yeah, so the purpose is not necessarily that the work group is separate, but that the work group itself is a home base. So for example, the work group would pull in all of this information, including the work that is being done from data and best practices, and it would be compiled into one document on an annual basis, comprised of multiple metrics from multiple work groups, including data and best practices. So the purpose is not to be seen as a separate work group, if you would.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. And the reason I'm breaking this up is because we have community members on the data and best practices work group. So if our work is so closely similar or aligned, we need to include them in all the work, because if we, for any reason, put out something extra and they see something, hey, why wasn't this discussed with us? Then it kind of builds a feeling like, hey, we were spending all this time and then you're working on your own. So that's why I'm thinking, even if it's not a separate work group, whatever that work group is, needs to work very, very closely with the data and best practices work group. And like I said, starting from Tuesday, we'll be setting out the foundations, but very quickly sharing presentations in July and August. So maybe those are the meetings you should attend so we can, work together.
Okay, Sandra?
Thank you, Preeti.
Yes, I'm just trying to get a clearing of I thought that the idea is like a self-assessment, something that we can go back and look at over the progress of the year or what has occurred. And almost every work group or whatever would end up having some form of assessment in that, or at least it's a document that says this is what happened and this is where we are.
Yes, Sandra, you're right.
I didn't think that it meant that it was usurping anyone's committee in the work that they do. I thought it was more a report. When the governor does the state of the state, he has gathered all the information from all the different areas and then creates the report and says, this is a snapshot of what I have for the year. And so I thought that that was the purpose of creating this report, not taking away from the work that the data people do and the community would do. This is what we've accomplished, or what happened during the past year.
Yes, Sandra, you are right.
So Sandra and Angela, I just want to clarify, because we're talking not intangibles and don't have examples of what we're looking for, you could say the same thing and think of two different reports, right? So I'm just clarifying this. I think if you're doing an annual report about where we have progressed, then that would be different. If you're doing a report with baseline and targets based on community indicators, say if you're housing, percent of people who have difficulty finding affordable housing in the town, then that would be something the data and best practices work group would do. But if you're saying that the data and best practices did this work, that would not be a duplication. It's not you're taking away. It's just that if you're aligned, we just need to work together, because we have people on the outside who don't see us any different. And so really be very careful about what we present, especially regarding data and practices, that it's discussed with the outside group.
I'm sorry. This is Kay. I have to jump in, and I might totally butcher my thoughts here or not properly describe them, but I would say about 6 months ago or something, when we were doing these discussions on the data and best practices and then trying to understand the systems approach, and how the community members will be involved in sort of co-creating the understanding of, the equity and the equity plan. There were conversations, and I might, help me jog my memory, Jamie, John, Preeti, who were in that meeting, where it was not the impression that we would be studying demographic data. This was a from my recollection, it was a different approach to data collection. That the focus on town demographic data, town policies, town procedures, and data already available with the town or the government or the census was not the scope of the data and best practices. And I believe I had asked that question. I just don't recall the answer. And I might be totally missing the point here, but that was not my understanding of the scope at that point, which is why that was one of the thoughts of sort of trying to move towards this group, was who is looking at the policies and who is looking at the existing data and who is going to talk to the town or the town, hiring practices and hiring policies and compensation policies and fiscal benefits and budgets of departments and things like that. That was my impression, was that was not being looked at by the data and best practices group.
You're talking about three different things, Kane, all what you talked, and it's very deep what you talked about. So you talked about demographics, which we would do, but the reason I suggested systems approach is because now people are up and running and will know exactly when we get the data, what to prioritize, what to do. So the only example I can think of, and that's because I work in public health, is to look at the prevention agenda dashboard. That has external demographics. So you would have definitely census is the place which has the most. The place that has the next most amount of demographics is health. And then there's education, especially at the level. So we'd be looking at all these external demographics. We have to look at the towns for policy. So that is part of best practices. Anytime you say this is a best practice, if it's not in an existing plan in the town, it won't get carried out. So when I give an update, I can kind of tell you it's a trifecta. You look at primary data, you look at secondary data, and you look at quality and quantitative data. And you're right, it's hard to get an exact picture when you're just talking in words, right? You want examples. And that is why I'm trying to clarify with Angela and with you, what exactly will the product look like at the end? And it's possible that we're talking about the same product, but using different language. And so for my example, I would say I was looking at a product like something like the prevention agenda, and that has the quantitative data and it has best practices. And so if you can tell me what your product would look like, that would be helpful. Will it look like an annual report, or will it look like a dashboard with baseline and targets? If it looks like a dashboard, then we're working on the same thing. If it looks like an annual report, a narrative, then maybe not.
I see that Liz has her hand raised. Liz, what is it that you wish to contribute?
Thank you, Preeti, for clarifying the questions. I had the same concern because all three of our people are part of our working group. So I don't know why we need another working group, but I ask you the same question before. Are we submitting our report to you to submit to the town board? I wasn't clear. And again, the demographics, we are looking through, but again, it takes time to get all these census of the community and how to follow through. So I don't know, I'm a little confused.
I think based on my review of the information that was submitted by this proposed working group, it would be a group that would focus on quantitative data and help as, in addition to obtaining that data, being a clearinghouse for that data and coordinating with the communications person. They would also coordinate with all existing work groups, including data and best practices. So as such, I would just suggest that it's it's a valuable suggestion, and they could be a very valuable work group. David.
Thanks, Dale. I think from a data tracking, data maintaining, and accountability standpoint, that it makes sense to do this work, but I don't know that it needs to be an independent committee. And I'm wondering if it can be built as the end goal or end product of this work. Can it be made as an activity or built into our working groups as an end of year activity, so that we can report the information that's requested, and to Kay's point, perhaps be a springboard or checklist to, okay, who is going to or have we, or who is going to address the town about this town department, has this criteria been met, has it been addressed? So I'm thinking out loud here, but that's what I'm wondering. Can it be made an activity of all the working groups with checkpoints, so to speak, checkpoint A, checkpoint B, checkpoint C, that address those concerns that Kay brought up, so that we have some connection going back and forth between what we're doing and what the town's doing, and are we meeting our criteria? Are they meeting our criteria, kind of thing? Kind of a cross checks and balances situation. Just a thought.
Thanks, David. And you know, while we are on the point, and I'm loving this discussion, because right, we cannot all be at all the places. So let me help with, let's say, I'm going to give a hypothetical, but not so hypothetical example, because that is a work group. So let's say I'm part of the economic teams or economic departments of the town, the admin, the finance, and things like that, right? And in order to meet my objectives, I need information from the town, be it policies, procedures, hiring practices, data on their payments, benefits, things like that. So my question is, am I collecting this data? Am I analyzing this data? What if I don't know how to do data analysis? What to do if I get all this information, I don't know what to do with it. I don't know what my next step is, right? Who helps me out? Do they take this information and give it to data and best practices and say, here's all the data I have from the economic departments of the town, and now help me, sort of pick it apart so I can meet my objectives as I have listed in my roadmap? That's sort of a question for discussion with the group.
Yeah, it's okay. Again, you are bringing up, like, there's so many layers to this, right? So what you are saying is technical support. How do I get that? We call that technical assistance or technical support. We put out the dashboard with the goals and targets, which we assess annually. Okay. Then we put out best practices about what works, what have we known, what's been proven to work, or what's more likely to work based on what we know from research, or just what is consensus on what works, and what are the opportunities to integrate that within our existing plans. That's why we would read the plans. Now, when you get down to the nitty gritties, I want like really specifics just about the Niska Yuna financial document. That would be a technical support part. And we have not got there because we haven't yet established our goals, our priorities. And if you're suggesting that your group, this group that Angela is doing, be a technical support group, that would be different. That would definitely be something that is required, and it's a big deal. But at this point, the data and best practices group has not got down to technical support because we are still, trying to get our priorities and our dashboard and our best practices. But what you say is important, but it's a slightly different one than looking at quantitative data and setting out targets. I think Kay got interrupted. But anyway.
I'm sorry, I have too much going on in my background. Just 1 second.
Yeah. So one thought I have, I'm looking at John's email saying that there are not enough people to vote on it. I would say, since it looks like you don't really have a good idea what the data and best practices work group is, maybe if you can come to the next 2 meetings, that would help clarify, because we are finishing our systems work about how things are interconnected and beginning to set boundaries about what will happen at the next one, and beginning to do a data inventory. So that will be at our June meeting, which is Tuesday. And then in August and July and August, we'll be presenting data. Some of it will be demographic, some of it'll be different sources. So maybe you'll have a better idea in July, by July, where we're going with this. Because it looks like you're not very clear. Yeah?
Pretty, may I make a suggestion? Because this information was the information from Angela and Kay and Jamie was sent out at after the last meeting. And there was no feedback given to them prior to today's meeting. So I'm gonna, because we don't have a quorum at this point, we can't vote on it. I'm going to table this issue until the next meeting, which will be in August.
That would be fine.
And at that time, that we are not closing down shop. People are still going to be working. And I suggest that you contact Angela and Kay, because it sounds to me, this is where I'm a little heated, because it sounds like they're overlapping terms. And it's clear in my mind that the suggested group is going to act as a clearinghouse group. It's going to filter out and be able to filter information, and it may be valuable to all work groups. I don't see it as a contradiction to the data and best practices group, but as a more clearly defined group that's going to actually assist us to get an annual report. But that's just my perception at this point from reading all of the materials that they've submitted. So I think we need to take this time to answer those questions and to see if some of the terms are not being used consistently, and get a clearer understanding of what they're proposing by asking questions of the proposers before we get to the point where we can vote as a group. Having said all of that, that's my suggestion. Do I have anyone who wants to second my motion to table this issue? Thank you, John, Jillian, and Liz. We'll table the issue and it will be moved to the August agenda. Anyone opposing my motion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you all. We don't have enough to take a vote, so, but thank you all. So we will move on then to the next agenda item. Which is the work group updates, and I'll turn the tables over to you, Kay. I will note that, as Jamie indicated, she had to leave by 7:05, and she did. So, Kay?
Thank you, Dale. Sorry, my file is hanging. All right, let's start with the public safety group. John, do you have an update for us?
Yes, okay, thank you, Kay. So the Public Safety Working Group, we had our monthly meeting on Monday. It was a good discussion, and it's always good to catch up with everybody. As I mentioned last month, we have completed our support of the town's police collaborative work, which was obviously a big effort for the town. And we'll be working actually with Kay over the next few weeks to organize the various documents that we've received as part of that collaborative work and start to build up the task force knowledge base and repositories. So I'm excited to start that work with you, Kay, soon. During the working group meeting, we also had interesting discussion, I guess, about the surprise retirement of Chief Wall. Many of us had had a chance to work with her over the last few months on the police reform work, the collaborative work, and we were all very impressed with her commitment to reform. So we were a little bit surprised and shocked, I guess, by the news of her sudden retirement. The discussion generated two questions, and Paul, I wonder if I could ask you to help us with these. I think they're basically for the town, but the first question we had as a group was what's the selection process for the new interim police chief or new police chief, and specifically how will diversity and community member input be applied to that process? So that's one question. For example, the Schenectady Police Department has announced that in their appointments of I believe the police chief and other leadership organizations, they are going to have some citizen input. So I asked the town if that's being considered in this situation, understanding it was not. It's a bit of a surprise. And then the second question was, because Chief Wall was so supportive of the task force and the collaborative, how will the supporting efforts that Chief Wall started, how will those be continued with the new interim or the new police chief? What assurances can the town offer around the continuing important work of the task force on racial equity and justice? So those were two questions, and that's my quick update. Thank you.
Well, I can certainly pass those questions on to the town board. If you could send them to me in writing. What I can tell everyone is that the appointment of a new police chief is governed by civil service. And when Chief Wall was appointed, she had not passed the chief's test. So civil service has to have a test for police chief. So the town of Niskayuna requested that civil service conduct a police chief's test for the town of Niskayuna. And that test was taken by Chief Wall, Deputy Chief Stevens, and two other town police officers. I can't remember their names. And we're waiting for the results of that exam. And if 3 people passed, the town is required to select the chief. This is my understanding, how it's been explained to me. From that list, there's also another list that has 2 Schenectady police officers on it that may be eligible. So that, as far as the process, that's the process. The other questions would best be answered by the town board.
I appreciate that, Paul, and I will follow up with an email with the questions that we came up with. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments regarding that issue? Sandra?
So understanding that it's a civil service exam and this exam has been done, so whatever the results are what the results are. Is there a method to soliciting for more diverse people to be involved in taking the exam? Because it sounds to me that currently it's who's ever on the force in Niskayuna. Is that the understanding, or how would it be open to others who are not in Niskayuna, understanding that an exam has to be taken?
So the exam was, civil service publicized the exam and only 4 people took it. So that exam is now going to be somewhat controlling the results of that exam with respect to what choices the town will have.
Yes.
The only we could go outside that list if it was only 2 people, but as long as there's 3 people that pass the exam, then we're bound by the list.
Yeah, so I think this is an important opportunity to examine how even, unintentional policies and practices may convene to create inequity in an environment. Or, I think it's important. I think it's important to evaluate how we may engage in practices that may unintentionally create advantage or disadvantage. So this is an important, I think, opportunity to consider what are some other ways that we can widen the net, so to speak.
Is that a question? Because if it is, I didn't understand it.
I think it's an opportunity for the committee to discuss how this group can inform how practices and policies can create or take away in terms of equity and inequity. So are there ways of advertising, for example, that where we can cast a broader net? Are there ways of advertising where, let's say, we only get a certain sample? And so if we're finding that, I don't know, the way that we are currently advertising doesn't cast a wide net, the purpose of this committee is to advise the town on other practices that we can engage in. And this is an opportunity right here for us to consider as we're thinking about the police chief. Is that clear?
So the civil test, when it's requested by the town, is published by the by civil service. I guess that's the best answer I can give you, because I didn't exactly follow that process, but I know generally that once a municipality requests that a test be given, whether it's for a town engineer or any of the civil service positions, the town asks that the civil service prepare a test, and then the civil service is the one that advertises that. I know my brother always watching the civil service list because he works for the state parks department. He's always checking the civil service list to see what exams are being offered, because the exams are they're for a specific position. In other words, they're for a park supervisor or a police chief, or, as I said, an engineer. They're very job specific. So, but as far as how civil service
I'm aware.
advertises,
Yes, I'm aware of how the exams work.
I don't know the answers to that question as far as how the town could best accomplish that, and that's maybe something that this task force can advise the town on.
If I may briefly, Paul, I think, I think about what I read in the Times Union this morning about the Albany Police Chief Hawkins being considered for police chief, I think Akron, Ohio, or some city in Ohio. And to Angela's point, how did that happen? How does it happen that a police chief in Albany, New York, is aware of a position in Ohio? If not by word of mouth, I mean, perhaps he's got family there. We don't know the answer to that question, but it's still a matter of, we know that some police forces, perhaps the larger cities' police forces, advertise nationally for recruiting to fill their positions, at least administratively speaking, and perhaps others, like you mentioned about civil service, like park supervisor and the like. So I think Angela's point is very well taken, and you don't know the answer, and I think we understand that, but it's something that I think is worthy of consideration of the town moving forward to cast a broader net, as Angela suggested. I think it's a great idea, and I think it's something we need to examine moving forward.
David, Paul had dropped off from the meeting briefly.
I'm back.
Oh,
So
awesome.
I heard the first part of the question, and I understand, and I actually looked into that, why Albany is able to, actually the police chief that they hired is from Michigan.
Right.
And Albany didn't have a list. They had not before they did, when they hired that police chief, they did a nationwide search, and they were able to do that because they had not requested a test, a police chief test, and didn't have a list that they had. Once you request that list and it's passed by at least 3 people, you're bound to the list. So we could. So that's the difference between Albany and our town.
Okay, thanks for the explanation, Paul.
How long is the list valid?
Excuse me?
How long is the list valid?
I'm going to say at least a year, because of course I don't know. I'm just presuming because I know that the 2 police officers from Schenectady have been on a list for quite a while, but I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
Okay. Jillian, you had your hand raised a while ago. Did you still have a question?
It was just a little tidbit, just adding my 2 cents. I know that in the police reform submission, the collaborative work, there was a suggestion made about ways that the community can be involved in the appointment of important figures in law enforcement, so chiefs especially. And a couple of those suggestions included having either a couple of appointed citizens or even a citizen review board, just being a part of the conversation. Now, seeing that Chief Wall, who was a very active participant in the reform work, is stepping down before we can implement those ideas, it's certainly a difficult situation. However, I still would like to see some involvement of the community. I just think that that's valuable, and I think that that shows a very important step for Niskayuna, especially considering the work that the town is saying that they're doing and to be inclusive. I think that actually doing some inclusive work would be really important. So that's my 2 cents.
Thanks, Jillian. Dale?
I just wanted to piggyback on what Jillian just stated and just remind everyone that the town has adopted those recommendations, and they're going to put in place the task force on policing that should be working with us to hopefully get those recommendations moving forward with the town board. So it's a valuable suggestion. And the collaborative has actually made that recommendation, as stated by Jillian.
Thanks, Dale. Any other questions or comments for the public safety group? Okay, moving on to the community services work group. David, is that you? Okay, great. Thanks, David.
Please, thank you. So, yeah, so we met with, I met with the leadership group late last month and got some clarity around direction for how we should proceed as a working group, our pace, our focus, and we got great feedback after a few days. Dale got back to us and let us know this would be the such and such would be the preferred path for us to take. I will summarize that by saying slowly but deliberately, focusing on one community group at a time within the town so as not to overextend ourselves. So that's been helpful in our work. And right now we're just waiting for some responses back from the community services coordinators in the town. And that's all I have to report at this point for our group. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Any questions for the community services group? Okay, moving on. Preeti, can you provide an update on the data and best practices work group, please?
You're unmuted.
You're on mute, Preeti.
I'll do a quick review of, I'll show what it is we worked on so you have an idea. It'll be quicker than me talking. All right, so if I can do an entire screen here. Okay. So this is a quick update. Let's see. So this was the charge we adapted from the town of Niskayuna. So the first meeting, we focused mostly on shared understanding. Now through June, we're working on the first three, beginning to talk about collecting data. Oh my gosh, sorry. Moving too quickly here. You're collecting data and frameworks. And like I said, in July and August, we'll actually be presenting the data. So the first meeting, we talked about complex systems and how they, and that racial equity and justice is a complex system, and we have to know the characteristics. At the last meeting, we started mapping our shared understanding, and then a smaller work group worked last week to develop feedback loops, exactly like what we were talking about, what Angela talked about, creating lists and how that creates a different set of kind of outcomes. But that's what we talked about, and we'll be talking again a little bit about feedback loops. This is what we talked about at the last meeting, that we will be using a mixed methods to actually come up with our goals and targets. We'll be using secondary data, which is census, data sources, existing planning reports, policies for best practices, primary data, which is key informant interviews and all of this. And we'll use this to identify annual baseline data and set targets. So our priority issues will be like the trifecta. They'll have a number of sources. And then what we'll be working on Tuesday is the iceberg model. You know, what do we see? What are the patterns? What are the systems? And what are the mental models? The reason for thinking about in systems is because we work not just at what is closest to any problem, but what in the distance can also influence it. We may work on the same things, but we'll hopefully have a different perspective. So that's really where we are going at. And that's why we've had 2 meetings so far, and we'll have a 3rd meeting. And like I said, our group is fairly committed, but it just takes time to get through the process. So that's what we've been working on. And like I said, at the next meeting, we'll be talking about frameworks, setting boundaries, sharing what we know about feedback loops. And starting in July, we'll start presenting data. That's it.
Thanks, Preeti. Any questions for the work group?
No, but thank you for the visuals because that helped. It helps understand it all better. Appreciate that.
Okay, that concludes the work group updates.
Thank you very much, Kay. We will then move on to the next item on our agenda. Bear with me 1 second. Which is additional topics. And tonight we have several additional topics. Jamie has left the meeting, so I'll just mention a brief discussion that I had with her. We received a communication, firstly, from the town historian regarding a look at the town seal and whether or not we're going to analyze recommendations that should be made regarding the seal. And that is an issue that will be taken up by the town administration work group that I think will be active, I believe, starting in August or September. And Jamie has indicated that she will reach out to the town historian to discuss with him issues regarding the town seal and framing a concrete plan of how to go about making recommendations prior to the formation or the starting of that work group. Questions or comments on that issue at this time? Okay, seeing no questions then or comments, I'll then move on to Liz, you raised an issue that has been added as an additional topic. You advised me in your email that Blatnick Park is open for the summer and that you would like to do a get-together, an in-person get-together of all members of the task force as a meet and greet. And of course, we would have to welcome the town persons, because any meeting that we have would be public. So I value your recommendation and I'll put it on the floor for discussion. Liz, would you like to clarify or add anything?
Yeah, we can, the capacity for the park is up to 50 people as of, the month I registered the park. But I think now it's more open, but it's welcome to use. It's already paid and it's open up to the end of the summer or up to fall. I think we should meet. So a lot of people left our committee, and if we meet, we can build our trust among ourselves. Because as of now, we don't know, only the Zoom meetings we are seeing. But I think the personal approach is much better than Zoom meetings. And we can bring our own stuff. The only thing we had to clean after ourselves because they don't have any people to clean.
Yeah, my question, this is Preeti. My question is, anytime that's more than a quorum, it becomes a public meeting and there's a requirement, at least that I'm hearing, that you have to record. I mean, just because whatever we may be speaking, that's what I found. Even our work group meetings are recorded and streamed. And we wanted to have an in-person meeting because it would have been so much easier. But because it had to be recorded, we went virtual. So my question is whether it's even feasible to have an informal meeting when there's more than a quorum present without recording it. And I think that's a question for Paul.
So you would not call it a meeting, you would just call it a social gathering, and you wouldn't conduct any business. Then you wouldn't need to worry about quorums or recordings or taking minutes. It would just be a social gathering, not a meeting. So as long as no business is discussed, there's no restrictions.
Paul, it was my understanding that we would have to still invite members of the public. So this would have to be advertised and is that correct? Or is this something that we could do just as task force members?
I don't see any reason why you couldn't have a task force social outing without having to invite the public.
Paul, last year we had we started off pretty rough because people did have a meeting online and did not discuss business, and then somebody put it on the blog and called it an illegal meeting. And I know that kind of got people a little bit put back because, there wasn't any business discussed, and yet somebody just said, well, it's an illegal meeting.
Well, you can't, in today's world, we can't stop naysayers, and people want to make false statements. There's nothing we can do about that. I will point out, though, that I believe as of your next meeting, if it's in August, you'll be meeting in person in the town hall.
Okay.
We're going back to in-person meetings now for all boards.
Actually, Paul, that was my next and last additional item. So I'll discuss that in a moment.
Okay.
Do we have any other questions or comments regarding a possible get-together in the park?
I think it's a great idea, especially, as some members might be leaving the task force before the August meeting. Liz, that's a great idea. I just feel like dates or times might be a challenge because, again, it's a crazy vacation month. But we can we can send a task force email and see what would work for everyone for a brief gathering, if not a long one.
And you can check the town website and look at the availability of the pavilion.
Mm-hmm.
So the pavilion in Blatnick Park people can reserve that if they want to have. I reserved it for my daughter's graduation party, but so I would suggest if you're going to start looking at dates and you want to use the pavilion, that you use the town calendar to see what the availability of that.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
Yeah, so good. I can reach out to Julie about, within the task force, as Kay said, we had to have the feedbacks from you, which dates. Saturday is open. It's open from, morning to the dawn. So anytime we can use it. But we have
the idea of getting together. I think that's a very nice idea.
I think it's a good idea too, but I actually would prefer to err on the side of caution and at least put it on the town calendar so that they know the public and members of the community know we're meeting. If they want to stop by and say hello to us, that's fine, so long as we discuss no task force business.
Yeah. Only thing we have to still follow the CDC guidelines. We have.
I'm sorry.
CDC protocols. When I reserved the park, Julie mentioned that. I think we should follow that. But
well, they may be relaxed significantly.
Yeah.
By that too, though.
Yeah. We cannot ask people whether you are vaccinated or not. But
okay.
But social distance is a big park, so.
Okay, so Liz, since you wish to organize this, you can certainly start coordinating it and let us know how it goes, and continue through email to the entire task force so we can coordinate dates and have this thing, this event occur. Probably around mid-June would be a good time at this point. Let's see, mid to the end of June.
End of June will be good because I have family.
Yeah, actually, today's the 9th. I forgot. So we're pretty close to mid-June. So it's not going to happen.
End of June.
End of June, maybe early, the end of June to the middle of July, I think.
Yeah,
what we're looking at.
That's good. Yeah, I need help because of my computer. I know I have problem with my technology, so I need help from you guys. Either Jillian or Sandra can.
I will help you. I will help.
Yeah,
I will help.
Then we'll talk each other.
And just to put it out there, we could do something like order from like Panera's or something, and everybody just has their own little lunch box and make it easy. We can do.
can hear.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm willing to help you. We can create something real simple, like maybe get box lunches or box whatever's from Panera's. Then everybody has their thing, and we have order. That's just a suggestion. We can figure it out, but I'm willing to help you.
Oh, thank you.
Are there grills in that park?
Okay.
I believe there still are grills in the park.
What's that?
Grills and picnic tables? And the
Yeah.
I can hear. What do you say?
Are there grills, gas grills or
Yeah,
charcoal
they
grills?
have grills. They have tables, bathrooms are there, but
Charcoal grills and tables.
it's
Okay.
much better to bring our own food instead of using the grill because it was closed for a long time. But there is grills.
Okay. I have a portable gas grill if we want to.
Yeah, we can use.
Okay.
Only thing we had to clean after ourselves. Bring our own trash.
Take it in, take it out. Got it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Liz. Thanks, Sandra.
Okay, thank you both. The last item on our agenda then will be, as Paul mentioned, the town is moving towards in-person meetings. Apparently, the town board is currently meeting in person. And probably by July or August, our next meeting is in August, but by August, the next meeting should be in person. The town will notify us. Paul, is there anything else you want to add to that discussion?
I'll just give you a heads up that, let's say you schedule a meeting for 6, you're going to need to get, you need to show up a little bit early because to enter the town hall now, we have a system whereby as you come into the door, there's pads on each side of the door and a temperature machine, and you have to have your temperature taken. Then you have to enter your information on the pad. It's your name, your telephone number, what facility you're entering, what your role is, employee, member, board member, that sort of thing. And then there's 4 or 5 questions you have to answer. So that we encourage people now that are coming to meetings that if they would like to participate, they should come a little bit early so they can get signed in. It's not, it takes, you actually, I'm not up to doing it, but I should be. You can pre-do it on your phone, so you can just come in and scan your phone into it. So I've seen lots of people that come on a regular basis just hold up their phone and then they walk right past it. They have to have their temperature taken, but other than that, the rest of it's, they can set it up on their phone. So that's my only, and the town boardroom is set up so there's social distancing. We're not requiring masks in town. If you've been vaccinated, if you haven't been vaccinated in the town hall, they're requesting that you wear a mask. Other than that, those are the present rules. As someone mentioned, I'm sure in another 2 months they'll be more relaxed, but we'll continue to have our sign-in system, I'm sure.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Those are all of the additional issues that have been raised before tonight's meeting. Are there any additional issues that anyone here wishes to raise? And please let us know by raising your hand. Okay. Okay, John? Your microphone is off.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I'm just realizing, Dale, that if we're going to skip July, so the August is our next meeting. So I just wanted to acknowledge your leadership and your role in our first year, getting us off the ground, doing our bylaws, getting the committees, getting the group formed and underway. And I just realized without July, this will be our last chance to say that to you on the record. And I wanted to make sure I did that. So thank you for your leadership, Dale.
Here, here.
Thank you. Thank you, Paul. John, it's been a pleasure. I think the greatest blessing of this is that I got a chance to meet my neighbors and I wouldn't have. And it's been a rich experience, extremely rich. So I thank you. I thank you all.
Yeah. Thank you, Dale. It's a very, we are blessed to have you as a leader. And it was,
Absolutely.
I hope you continue happy, to join us, or bystander, give us your feedbacks and help us in a good directions.
We're a good group, and I think this is going to have a beautiful outcome for the town. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
It's been great. So on that note, thank you, John. Any other comments? Okay, seeing no hand raised. Liz.
Sorry. Can I ask you one question? It's not related to the council breaks. I have one simple question. Alexis Kim, she was helping us from the beginning, for my farmers market and task force. I know she's on maternity leave. Do you know when she'll be coming back? Or
who is that again, please?
Alexis Kim.
Alexis is no longer employed by the town.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Well, Paul, do you know who will be helping with the farmers market and those issues that Alexis was managing?
Well, Alexis hasn't been with the town now for a couple months. So some of her duties have fallen to me, but we also have brought back a former deputy town attorney, Elena Finnan. She's part-time, but she's filling some of the roles that Alexis used to work on. And at some point in time, towards the end of the year, we'll be looking for to appoint a new deputy town attorney. But the farmers market is that's being conducted through the highway committee, and so the farmers market is proceeding along. Primarily, Yasmin, our supervisor, Yasmin Syed, is in charge of that.
Thank you, Paul. At this time, then, I will motion to close the meeting. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. There's a rush of seconds led by David. Thank you. Anyone oppose that motion? And I see no hand raised. So all in favor, say aye.
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 And the meeting is adjourned tonight. I thank you all, and we'll see you guys. We'll all get together by the middle of July. Good
Yes.
night.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you all.
Thanks,
Good night.
Lisa.
Enjoy.
Good night. Stay cool, everyone.